Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm taking a little art break. I've got a bunch of drawings in here that my sister did that I keep close by for inspiration, but today I'm going to be working on this one I drew recently, which is supposed to go with the artwork I'm doing for my Work in Progress fantasy series. I've already done some of the magic items and a couple other characters, but this is one of the other main characters. Her name is Tula. I asked my followers on Instagram what they thought I should use for this, and most people wanted to see me use gouache paint, so today I'm doing gouache. The very first thing I did was drop my paintbrush and get paint all over the right-hand side of the paper. Fortunately, I think I can Photoshop that out later. It's been a long time since I did anime-style art. Most of my recent stuff is more realistic, or a little bit more like Western comics with just a hint of Asian influence. But I grew up drawing anime, of course, and I really enjoyed it. It's been kind of nice to come back to it, because I feel like it's much easier to draw than my usual style. It's a lot more relaxed, and I have a lot more leeway with the anatomy, and nothing has to be particularly complicated. Since I'm trying to keep things relaxed like that overall, I'm trying not to mix paint too much. So I'm using a lot of colors straight out of the tubes, just diluted to different consistencies to get different shades. Her hair is a combination of carmine and flame red. Her cape looks more yellow here, but it's actually permanent yellow-orange. I guess while I'm painting, I'll talk a little bit about the series, and why I decided to start working on it. If you've been watching my channel at all, you know that I have an epic fantasy series that I wrote that I've been querying for a few years now, and I haven't gotten very far with traditional publishing. I've had several agents tell me that the books were too long and that I needed to cut them down. I've had a number of both editors and agents tell me that they don't think the book is a good fit for young adult, but it's not a young adult series. So I'm not sure why they keep taking it that way, especially since nothing in my query letter has indicated that it's anything other than epic fantasy. I've also been told that there isn't really room in epic fantasy right now for female authors. It's been kind of disheartening, but I know that in publishing, like with anything else, it's just a matter of business, what they think will sell. That's why you see a lot of these hot genre tropes that pop up. So you have trends where you see nothing but vampires or nothing but zombies. Right now in fantasy, you see a ton of Game of Thrones clones. And if you don't fit neatly into one of those categories, it's hard to be the breakout novel that pioneers something new, or maybe shies away from some of the conventions that are really popular right now. At the end of the day, what I wrote was the kind of book that I always wanted to read. So I'm not very comfortable stripping it down and refitting it to fit somebody else's ideal, just to make it sell. The paint I'm using for her skin is a mixture of flame red, raw umber, and permanent white. This is one of only 3 colors that I mixed myself. Her pants are being painted with permanent yellow. So for now, I've decided to put those stories away. I'll come back to them later on, maybe after I've had a chance to edit some more. In the meantime, the only way to move forward is to try writing something else. Her top is a combination of permanent green deep with just a tiny bit of permanent yellow added to make it a bit brighter. Same for her sash. Her eyes will be this color as well. I have a lot of ideas for fantasy stories, and in the past I've always tried to group them into the same world. The longer I work on this one though, the more it tries to break away and do its own thing, and I think that's okay. It might be a good thing for me to branch out and do something completely new. Her coat is being painted with carmine red. So you may have seen previously the characters Zaid and Ricia, who the book begins with. Tula is one of the other major characters. You've probably guessed, but Tula is a girl from the desert. I have a world map that I've been working on that I've put on my website, and you can see the western desert that she comes from. The city she lives in is kind of on a peninsula. When I was putting together this character concept, I didn't really want her to have her stomach exposed, but while I was drawing it, she kind of became one of those characters that developed a life of her own. And I realized that I couldn't give her a top that covered her midriff because she's very proud of the sapphire in her navel, and she would want everybody to see it, especially since that's kind of a shocking thing in her culture. For the trim on her coat, I start with a paler yellow, but I'm not really happy with it, so I add some metallic gold watercolor over the top. I've really liked using touches of metallics in these pictures. I'll use metallic for her sword too. The shading on her hair is being done with more flame red and carmine. I feel like her portrait really gets her attitude across, that she's a really perky, happy, spirited character. But she's also pretty educated, really intelligent, and she's kind of a bookworm. I feel like most of the time when you have really adventurous type characters, they kind of shy away from literacy. But Tula is actually a librarian. Overall, the main character of the series is actually going to be Zaid, but these supporting characters have really big, really important roles too. So I kind of consider them part of the main party, so to speak. The shading on her cape is being done with more of the permanent yellow-orange, just less watered down. The shading on her coat is more concentrated carmine. This story is going to be pretty big. I'm planning for it to be 6 books. It's going to span most of a continent. The book takes place in a region that's known as Allied Kingdoms. At some point in the history of these different kingdoms, they banded together underneath one king. He was the king with the most experience and the best plan for defending them against an invading army. Over time, the kingdom just kind of merged together into one. So you have different areas, like the desert or the northern wastes, where there are different people who are mostly self-governing, but at the end of the day, they all answer to the same king. The shading on her shirt is more concentrated green. Not doing anything special with colors here. Tula is kind of the unofficial second in command of the group. Everybody follows Zaid because the mission was given to him. But Tula has a lot of skills, and she's really crafty and clever, so she's very helpful to him. So she'll play a really big role in the group. Unsurprisingly, since it's what I like the most, it's kind of a medieval level fantasy. But it's going to rely heavily on magic, and I always enjoy writing magic systems. If you watched the previous character illustrations I did, as well as the illustration of the magic items, you've probably noticed a theme in the colors. There are 2 more characters in the main party that I'm going to draw. The brown for her boots is the other color that I mixed. For both the base color and the shading, I use a mixture of raw umber and ivory black. It's kind of funny because when I thought of this particular magic system, I decided it was going to be a blend of elements and colors. And I'd never seen anything like that before, even though I read a lot. So naturally, after I started developing it, in the following 6 months, I found a whole ton of books that focus on magic revolving around colors. It's just kind of the way it goes, I guess. I'm still gonna do it because mine won't be exactly like anybody else's. But it's always interesting how as soon as you come up with something and you think it's fresh and new, then all of a sudden you see it everywhere. I finish her face using a watercolor pencil for her eyes because I don't trust myself to do these tiny lines with black. And then there's a tiny dot of blue for her belly button. There's a lot more I'd like to say about the series and characters, but I almost don't know where to start. It may be one of those things where I'd be better off doing a live stream or something, because then people can ask me questions and I can answer them in real time. So if that's the kind of thing that you'd be interested in, please let me know. I guess where I really need to start is actually sitting down and writing. That's one of my goals for the month of October, finally get this book started. And there she is, that's the finished illustration. I've always loved the texture you get with traditional media. It's really hard to replicate that with digital drawings. I'll probably stick to this method I've been using, where I sketch something out in my sketchbook and then scan it and create digital line art. That way my line art is really clean and crisp. I don't have a light box, so I hold it up to the window to trace it onto watercolor paper. It's been working well so far, but it sure does make my arm tired. And that's it for this time, I guess. Thanks for watching. Bye.